My name is Emily, and I'm 28 years old. Imagine sitting in your parents' cozy living room, sipping tea, surrounded by childhood photos on the walls. When suddenly, your parents lean forward with grave expressions and say, "Emily, we need you to lend us $100,000. I froze. My parents, the people who had always seemed so strong and dependable, were now looking at me with desperation in their eyes, asking me for a life-changing sum of money. But it wasn't really a request. It felt more like a demand. If you want to see how this story unfolds, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more shocking family drama stories. Trust me, you won't believe how far my parents went when I said no. At first, I laughed nervously, thinking it was a joke. Who asks for $100,000 like it's pocket change? But they didn't laugh. My dad leaned forward, his voice heavy with authority. "Emily, you have a great job, a nice apartment, and plenty of savings. You're in a position to help us. This is your duty as our daughter." My mom nodded, her eyes filling with tears that felt rehearsed. "We sacrificed everything for you, Emily. We paid for your education, supported your dreams, and now you have the chance to return the favor." Her words stung. Yes, they had sacrificed for me. But hadn't that been what parents were supposed to do? I had worked endless overtime hours, skipped vacations, and pinched every penny to save what I had. That money wasn't just sitting there, it was my future, my safety net. I swallowed hard and asked, "Why do you need that much money?" They exchanged a look before my dad sighed. "We're in deep debt, the mortgage is slipping, credit cards are maxed out, and if we don't fix this soon, we could lose the house." My mom grabbed my hand. "Please, honey. We're not asking forever. Just lend it to us. You'll get it back." But my gut twisted. $100,000? That wasn't something you could just lend without serious risk. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my heart racing. I wanted to help them. Of course I did. But the other side of me screamed, "What if you never see that money again? What if you ruin your future to bail them out of their mistakes?" The next morning, I called my older brother, Michael. If anyone understood, it would be him. When I explained everything, there was silence on the line. Then he said, "Emily, they asked me first, a month ago." My stomach dropped. "What? Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't want to drag you into it. They wanted me to take out a loan. I refused. I've got kids, a mortgage, and no way to cover that. When I said no, they moved on to you." I sat frozen on my bed, phone pressed to my ear. Suddenly, all the guilt tripping from last night made sense. I wasn't their only hope. I was just their next option. The following weekend, I went back to their house to give them my answer. The tension was thick. My mom had baked a pie, the same one she used to cheer me up as a kid. But now it felt like a weapon of guilt. My dad sat stiffly in his armchair, arms crossed, waiting. I took a deep breath. "I can't do it. I can't give you $100,000. The air grew cold. My mom's face crumpled, and tears streamed down her cheeks. My dad's voice was sharp, like a knife. "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? You choose money over your own parents?" I tried to explain. "It's not that I don't want to help. I can help in smaller ways, cover some bills, maybe get you financial advice, but I can't hand over my entire life savings." That's when my mom snapped. Her voice shook with rage. "We raised you better than this. We gave you everything, Emily, and now when we need you the most, you abandon us." Her words sliced through me. I felt like the villain, the selfish child they were painting me to be. But deep down, I knew I wasn't wrong. The weeks that followed were pure hell. My calls went unanswered, my texts ignored. At family gatherings, they treated me like a stranger. I heard the whispers, relatives muttering about how I was ungrateful and heartless. One evening, my aunt pulled me aside and hissed, How could you refuse your parents like that? They're devastated. Everyone's talking about you. I stood there, stunned. My parents had turned the entire family against me. And just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, they made a decision that would cut me out of their lives completely. When I say my parents cut me out, I mean it literally. I got the news in the most humiliating way possible, through my cousin. One afternoon, she texted me a picture of a Facebook post my mom had made. The caption read, "It breaks our hearts to say this, but sometimes children turn their backs on family. We no longer recognize Emily as our daughter. From this day on, she is no longer part of our lives." My jaw dropped. My own mother had disowned me publicly, broadcasting it online for all our relatives, family friends, and even strangers to see. The post had dozens of comments, people offering sympathy, telling my parents they didn't deserve such betrayal. Some even called me selfish, spoiled, ungrateful. I wanted to scream. None of them knew the truth. None of them knew my parents had demanded $100,000 like it was pocket change. That night, I confronted them. I drove to their house, heart pounding with anger and grief. When my dad opened the door, he didn't even look me in the eye. "Why would you post that about me?" I demanded. My mom stepped forward, her expression cold. "Because it's the truth, Emily. We can't believe you'd turn your back on us. People deserve to know the kind of daughter you are." My voice shook. "You're making me look like a monster when all I did was protect myself. You're asking me to destroy my future for your mistakes. That's not fair." But my dad's face hardened even more. "Life isn't fair. Family sacrifices for each other. Clearly, you're too selfish to understand that." I stared at them, tears blurring my vision. "Do you even hear yourselves? You were not asking for help. You were demanding I give up everything Ivy worked for. That's not love. That's manipulation." For a split second, I thought I saw doubt flicker in my mom's eyes. But then she turned away, wiping her tears. "Leave, Emily. If you won't help us, you're no longer welcome here." I drove home in silence, my chest heavy like a stone. The rejection stung worse than anything I'd ever felt. It was like my entire childhood. Every birthday, every bedtime story, every moment of love had been erased in an instant. I tried to bury myself in work to escape the pain, but the family gossip followed me everywhere. My uncle stopped returning my calls. My grandmother, who I adored, refused to answer the phone. And when I finally visited her in person, she shook her head in disappointment. "Your parents are devastated, Emily. How could you do this to them?" I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her the whole truth, that I wasn't the villain, that I had every right to say no. But I couldn't to bring myself to break her heart further. So I just stood there, swallowing my words, while guilt and anger ate me alive. Meanwhile, my brother Michael grew furious at the situation. "This is insane," he told me one night over the phone. "They're making you the scapegoat. They're punishing you because you didn't cave. It's emotional blackmail." But Michael wasn't completely safe either. The more he defended me, the more they turned on him too. Soon, they started telling relatives he was brainwashed by Emily and choosing her side over the family. It was like a war zone, and I was the enemy. Weeks passed. I thought maybe time would cool things down, but instead, they escalated. One afternoon, I got a letter in the mail, an official-looking envelope with my parents' names on it. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a typed document, a revised will. I scanned the pages, my stomach sinking. They had written me out completely. My name wasn't anywhere. Everything, house, savings, possessions, was being left to Michael. Attached was a handwritten note. "Since you've chosen money over us, don't expect a penny when we're gone. We will no longer acknowledge you as our daughter." My breath caught in my throat. I wasn't just being punished now. I was being erased. The betrayal hit me like a tidal wave. For days, I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. My parents had always been my foundation, my safe place. Now they were tearing me apart piece by piece, as if I had committed some unforgivable crime. But deep inside, a fire started to burn. I realized something. If they could cut me out so easily, maybe I had been blind to who they truly were all along. And that's when I decided, if they wanted war, I would stop playing defense. I was going to fight back. The decision to fight back wasn't easy. I had always been the peacekeeper in the family, the one who smoothed arguments, who kept my head down, who avoided conflict. But now, the damage was too deep. I wasn't going to let them destroy my reputation and rewrite the story of who I was. The first step was truth. I sat down at my laptop late one night, shaking with nerves, and began typing out everything that had happened. From the moment they demanded $100,000, to the way they guilt-tripped me, to the will that cut me out completely. I wrote the truth in raw detail, my hands trembling but steady enough to keep going. When I finished, I posted it online, not as a rant, but as a carefully written account. I didn't name them directly, but anyone in the family circle would recognize the story. The response was explosive. Some people reached out privately, saying they had always suspected my parents of being manipulative. A few even confessed they'd had similar experiences with them in the past. Of course, there were still defenders, relatives who accused me of lying, twisting the story. But for the first time, I felt heard. For the first time, I wasn't completely alone. Michael, my brother, stood firmly by my side. They can smear you all they want, but people are starting to see the truth, he told me. It's not you who looks bad anymore. It's them. But my parents didn't back down. When they realized people were beginning to question their narrative, they doubled down on the guilt campaign. They posted cryptic status updates about betrayal and greedy children. They stopped inviting me to family gatherings altogether. Birthdays, holidays, anniversaries. I was erased from everything. And yet, strangely, the more they pushed me out, the stronger I felt. The turning point came when I ran into my grandmother again at a family event I wasn't technically invited to. Michael had asked me to come to his daughter's birthday party, and I knew it would cause a scene, but I went anyway. When my grandmother saw me walk through the door, her eyes filled with tears. At first I thought she was still angry with me, but then she whispered, "I'm so glad you came." She pulled me into the kitchen, away from prying eyes, and confessed, "Your parents have been telling everyone you abandoned them, but I've been thinking about it, and it doesn't add up. You've always been there for this family. I needed to hear your side." My throat tightened. For the first time, someone close to my parents was willing to listen, so I told her everything. The demand for $100,000, the threats, the will, the Facebook post, all of it. By the time I finished, she was silent, her face pale. Then she shook her head slowly. "I believe you, Emily. I think your parents have lost their way." Her words were like a balm on an open wound. For weeks I had felt like an orphan, cut off from everything I loved. Hearing her say she believed me made me feel human again. But while my grandmother gave me comfort, my parents' cruelty kept escalating. One evening, I received a message from my manager at work. Apparently, my parents had called my office pretending to be concerned about me, hinting that I was unstable and might be misusing company funds. I was furious. They weren't just attacking me personally anymore. They were trying to sabotage my career. I called them immediately, shaking with rage. "How dare you interfere with my job? Do you know how much damage you could have caused?" My dad's voice was calm, almost smug. "We're worried about you, Emily. If you won't do the right thing, maybe others need to know who you really are." My jaw clenched. Who I really am. I'm the daughter who has done nothing but work hard and try to live responsibly. And you... My voice broke with fury. "You're the parents who would rather destroy me than admit you're wrong." There was silence on the line. Then coldly, my mom said, "Don't call us again." And the line went dead. That night, I sat in my apartment, shaking, tears streaming down my face. I felt broken, but at the same time, something inside me hardened. If they wanted to paint me as the villain, fine. But I wasn't going to let them win. I started documenting everything. Every message, every phone call, every piece of slander they spread. If this turned into a legal battle, I wanted to be ready. And then, something unexpected happened. A relative I barely spoke to messaged me out of the blue. She said, "Emily, I know you're telling the truth. Your parents pulled the same stunt with me years ago. They demanded money, and when I refused, they cut me out too." I stared at the message, stunned. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just about me. This was a pattern, and I was finally ready to expose it. The message from my distant cousin rattled me to my core. She was calm, almost apologetic, as she wrote, "Years ago, your parents asked me and my husband for a large sum of money, too. When we said no, they told everyone we'd abandoned the family. We stopped coming to gatherings because we were tired of the whispers. I wish I'd spoken up sooner, but I was afraid." I sat there, rereading her words over and over. Suddenly, the picture became clear. My parents weren't just desperate victims of bad luck. They had been running this game for years, exploiting relatives for money. And when it didn't work, they turned everyone against them. And now, they were doing it to me. I shared the message with Michael. His reaction was instant rage. Unbelievable. They've been pulling this stunt for years, and no one said a word. No wonder they in debt. They always looking for someone else to bail them out. We agreed it was time to confront them, not alone, but in front of the family. So when Thanksgiving came around, and the entire clan gathered at my aunt's house, we decided that was the moment. I was terrified, my hands sweating as I carried a folder stuffed with printed screenshots, messages, and the cousin's testimony. I knew there would be shouting. I knew there would be tears. But I also knew I couldn't let them control the narrative anymore. The dinner started as usual, with polite chatter, clinking cutlery, and the smell of roasted turkey filling the air. My parents acted like everything was normal, smiling and laughing with relatives, as if they hadn't disowned me publicly months earlier. But when dessert was served, I cleared my throat and stood up. The room fell silent. My heart pounded so loudly I thought everyone could hear it. "I need to say something," I began. "It's about what's been happening between me and Mom and Dad." My parents stiffened immediately, but I pushed through the fear. "They told everyone I abandoned them. They told you all I'm selfish, greedy, ungrateful. But that's not the truth. The truth is, they demanded I lend them $100,000. And when I refused, they cut me off, rewrote their will, and tried to destroy my reputation." Gasps rippled through the table. My mom jumped to her feet, her voice trembling with fury. "How dare you air our private matters here? You're lying, Emily. You're twisting everything." But before I could even respond, Michael stood up too. "She's not lying. They asked me first. They wanted me to take out a loan for them. When I refused, they turned to Emily." The room buzzed with shock. My dad's face turned red. "This is slander. We've sacrificed everything for you two, and this is how you repay us?" That's when I pulled out the folder and spread the printed messages across the table. Here's proof. Texts, emails, even a letter from a cousin who went through the same thing years ago. This isn't a one-time mistake. This is a pattern. Relatives leaned forward, reading in stunned silence. My aunt covered her mouth with her hand. My grandmother's eyes welled with tears. And for the first time, I saw doubt flicker across the room. My parents tried to fight back. My mom cried loudly, insisting I was making things up. My dad shouted about respect and family loyalty. But the harder they fought, the more desperate they looked. Finally, my grandmother spoke, her voice trembling but firm. "Enough. I've heard both sides, and I believe Emily." The room went silent. "You've lied to us before," she continued, looking directly at my parents. And now it's clear you've been lying again. You can't keep using guilt to control your children. This ends now." My mom collapsed into her chair, sobbing. My dad's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. For once, he had no words. The family split that night. Some relatives sided with my parents, convinced they were still the victims. But others, more than I expected, came to me quietly, offering support, saying they finally saw the truth. Driving home later, I felt a strange mix of relief and heartbreak. I hadn't wanted to expose my parents like that, but I also couldn't let them keep destroying me. Michael squeezed my hand as we drove. "You did the right thing," he said softly. "They can't control us anymore." For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. My parents weren't the type to admit defeat. And I was right, because the very next week they escalated things in a way that would push me to the edge. The Thanksgiving confrontation should have been the end. I had exposed the truth, relatives had seen the evidence, and for the first time in months, I felt like the fog was lifting. But I underestimated just how far my parents were willing to go. A week later, I came home from work to find an envelope taped to my apartment door. Inside was a letter, not handwritten, not emotional, but typed, cold and formal. It was from a lawyer. My parents were suing me. The letter claimed I had defamed them in front of family, causing emotional distress and damaging their reputation. They were demanding $100,000 in damages, the exact amount they had originally asked me to lend them. I sat on the floor of my apartment clutching the paper, my hands shaking so badly I could barely read the words. My parents weren't just cutting me out anymore. They were trying to ruin me. The next day, I met with Michael at a coffee shop. He read the letter, his jaw tightening with every line. "This is insane," he muttered. "They don't have a case. They're just trying to scare you." "But what if they win?" I whispered, panic rising in my chest. "What if I lose everything?" Michael reached across the table, grabbing my hand. "Emily, listen to me. You told the truth. You have proof. They're bluffing. And even if this goes to court, I'll stand with you." His words steadied me, but deep down, I still felt like a child again. Small, powerless, and desperate for my parents' approval. When I showed the letter to my lawyer, she shook her head in disbelief. "This is textbook intimidation. They know they don't have a strong case, but they're hoping the pressure will make you cave. Don't let them." She helped me draft a response, refusing their claims and warning them that if they continued, we could countersue for harassment. For a while, it was quiet. No more letters, no more calls. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd back down. But then came the smear campaign. One morning, my phone buzzed nonstop with notifications. Friends and coworkers were sending me screenshots of posts my parents had made online. Long, dramatic rants about how their daughter had betrayed them, spread lies to destroy them, and turn the family against them for money. The comment section was brutal. Strangers called me disgusting, selfish, heartless. Some even messaged me directly, telling me I should be ashamed of myself. I wanted to crawl under a blanket and disappear. But instead, I did something I never thought I'd do. I made a video. I sat in front of my camera, tears in my eyes but my voice steady, and told my story from beginning to end. I showed the letters, the texts, the emails, even the revised will that had cut me out completely. I didn't use my parents' names, but the truth was there, clear as day. When I uploaded it, my hands were trembling. I expected backlash. I expected more hate. But instead, something incredible happened. Within hours, the video started gaining traction. People from all over the world commented, sharing their own stories of toxic parents, of being manipulated, of being disowned when they didn't give in to unreasonable demands. Messages poured in. "Thank you for sharing this. I thought I was alone. Your strength gives me hope. Don't let them break you. You're doing the right thing." For the first time in this nightmare, I didn't feel isolated. I felt understood. Of course, my parents saw the video too. They called me late one night, my dad's voice shaking with rage. "You humiliated us in front of the whole world. Take it down or we'll ruin you." I took a deep breath and finally said the words I'd been too afraid to say my entire life. "No. You've already tried to ruin me. But I'm done being afraid of you. This ends now." I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking, but this time it wasn't fear. It was power. In the weeks that followed, the lawsuit quietly disappeared. My lawyer said they likely realized they had no chance of winning. My parents went silent online too, probably embarrassed that their smear campaign had backfired so spectacularly. But I knew them. Silence didn't mean surrender, and I was right. Because just when I thought the storm had passed, they did something I never imagined. They tried to turn Michael against me. I remember that night vividly, like a scar etched deep into my memory. I sat at my desk staring at my laptop screen, a half-written resignation letter glowing on the page. I thought maybe walking away from my job, cashing out early, and handing the money to my parents would make everything easier. No more guilt, no more shouting matches, no more feeling like a terrible daughter. But deep down, I knew it would destroy me. Years of work, years of sacrifice, I would be left with nothing but resentment. I closed the laptop and cried myself to sleep. For the first time in my life, I chose myself over them, and it hurt like hell. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a series of messages. They weren't from my parents. They were from relatives. My aunt, my uncle, even cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. "Why are you being so selfish? Your parents raised you. You owe them. Everyone in the family is ashamed of you." My stomach turned. They had gone around me, poisoning the ears of the entire family tree, painting me as some greedy, ungrateful child who abandoned her own parents. The worst part? They twisted the truth. They told everyone I had the money just sitting there, but refused to help. No one knew that I was still paying off my own student loans, still building my life from scratch. To them, I was a heartless daughter swimming in riches and refusing to share. I felt cornered. If I defended myself, I'd look like I was making excuses. If I stayed silent, their version of the story became the only version. Either way, I lost. That night, I called my mom, hoping maybe, just maybe, we could talk like we used to. I prayed that she would hear the pain in my voice and remember that I was still her daughter. "Mom," I said, my voice trembling. "Please, can we just talk about this? Without yelling? I love you. I just want us to be okay." Her voice was cold, detached. "You made your choice, Emily. Don't come crawling back when you realize money means nothing without family." "Mom, it's not like that." But she hung up. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, listening to the empty line. My mom had never spoken to me like that before. The woman who used to bandage my knees when I scraped them on the playground now spoke to me like a stranger. That's when the grief hit. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about the fact that my parents had chosen a number on a check over a lifetime of love and trust. Days turned into weeks, and the silence stretched longer. No calls, no texts. Holidays came and went without an invitation. My birthday passed without so much as a happy birthday from them. I kept waiting for them to break, to miss me, to reach out, but they didn't. Instead, I scrolled through Facebook one afternoon and saw pictures of my parents smiling at a big family dinner. Everyone was there. My aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone except me. That photo broke me more than anything else. It wasn't just that they had cut me out. It was how easily they seemed to replace me. But here's the twist. A few months later, I got a call from my cousin Mark. He wasn't close to my parents, but he'd been at that dinner. "Emily," he said carefully, "I think you should know something. Your parents, They've been asking other family members for money, not just you." My heart sank. "What do you mean?" "They asked Uncle Joe for 50K, Aunt Linda for 30K. They even asked me for 10. No one has that kind of money just lying around. They've been spinning the same story about needing it for investments or some medical emergency, but no one's really sure what it's for. Some people think they're in debt, big debt." The puzzle pieces fell into place. It wasn't just me they targeted. It was everyone. They'd been manipulating the entire family, using guilt and shame to squeeze money out of anyone they could. Suddenly, I didn't feel as alone. For the first time, I realized it wasn't about me being a bad daughter. It was about them, their desperation, their choices, their lies. And yet, knowing the truth didn't heal the wound. It just made it deeper. Because what kind of parents would rather beg, manipulate, and isolate than simply sit down with their daughter and be honest? That night, I made a decision. If they wanted me out of their lives, I would honor that wish. But I would no longer carry the guilt of their choices. For the first time in months, I slept peacefully. I had lost my parents, but maybe, just maybe, I had found myself. Months had passed since the Thanksgiving confrontation, and the tension between my parents and me had not eased. I had rebuilt my life piece by piece, focusing on my work, my friends, and my small apartment that felt more like a sanctuary than ever. But the wounds they left ran deep. Every holiday, every family gathering reminded me of their absence. Then came the message that would finally bring everything to a head. It was from my cousin, Mark, and it read, "Emily, you need to know the truth about the 100K. Mom and Dad haven't been honest with anyone. They've been borrowing from multiple relatives, lying about investments, and hiding massive debts. They're spiraling." I felt a mix of dread and determination. I knew this confrontation would be difficult, but I couldn't stay silent anymore. I had to face them, not as a scared daughter, but as a woman who had endured betrayal and come out stronger. I drove to their house one late afternoon, heart hammering. My parents were waiting on the porch, both of them looking uneasy. Their usual confidence seemed gone, replaced by something raw and exposed. "I want to talk," I said, stepping onto the porch. They exchanged glances. My mom's lips trembled. My dad's hands tightened around the railing. "You've already hurt us enough," my father said cautiously. "I don't want to hurt you," I replied, my voice firm but calm. "I want to be honest. I want you to understand the consequences of your actions." I pulled out a folder containing every piece of evidence: the letters, the texts, the emails, and the messages from relatives who had also been manipulated. I laid them on the table, my hands steady despite my racing heart. "These are your actions," I said. "This is everything you've done to pressure me and others for money. This isn't about helping the family. It's about control. You weaponized guilt and love to manipulate everyone around you." My mother's face went pale. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but this time they weren't angry tears. They were terrified. My father's jaw tightened, but he couldn't look me in the eye. You think we're monsters?" my mom whispered. "I think you made choices that hurt the people who love you," I said softly. "Choices that broke trust and caused pain. You asked for $100,000, and when I refused, you cut me out completely. You tried to rewrite our family story to make me the villain. Do you understand that?" They stayed silent. The weight of my words hung in the air like a storm cloud. "I didn't abandon you," I continued, tears threatening to spill. "I chose my future, yes, but I also survived your manipulation, and now it's time you face the truth." My dad finally spoke, his voice low and trembling. "Emily, we were desperate. We didn't know how else to fix things. We never meant to hurt you this badly." My mom reached out as if to touch my hand, but I didn't move. "It's too late for apologies," I said quietly. "You've already cut the family apart. The damage is done." And in that moment, something shifted. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. For years I had carried guilt, fear, and heartbreak. But now I realized I didn't need their validation. I didn't need their approval. Their love had been conditional, and I refused to let that define me. I walked away from the house that day, not with anger, but with clarity. I had faced the people who had tried to destroy me emotionally, financially, and socially, and I had survived. Over the next months, our family slowly began to heal, but on my terms. Some relatives reached out privately, acknowledging the truth. Michael and I became even closer, a united front against the chaos. My parents remained distant, but that distance no longer hurt me. It protected me. I continued my work, my friends became my chosen family, and for the first time, I felt whole again. I realized that love isn't about manipulation or demands. It's about trust, honesty, and respect. And if those elements are missing, it's okay to walk away. The $100,000 was never about the money. It was about control, about testing my loyalty, about trying to force me into submission. But I had resisted. I had stood firm. And in doing so, I had discovered something far more valuable than money: my own strength. As I look back now, I understand something crucial. Some family bonds can be broken by greed, lies, and manipulation. But other bonds, those built on truth, courage, and self-respect, are unbreakable. I will always carry the memories of my parents with me, both the good and the bad, but I will never again let fear or guilt dictate my choices. And though they may never admit it, they lost the most important thing they could have: a daughter who chose herself, who refused to be silenced, and who survived their betrayal stronger than ever. I am Emily. I am not broken. I am free.